Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'll be chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel also via Zoom are Jerry Arnell and Valerie Werhan. Our secretary today is Zachary Mohan, and our assessor is Atir Rehan. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all of the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 8 on our docket today. Mr. Mohan, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Of course, Madam Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Howard Lindsay McCubbin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Mr. Rehan and Mr. McCubbin.
Afternoon.
So one of the items or a matter that we need to deal with first is there's an issue of late evidence submitted, Mr. McCubbin. That's your Altus cap rate study, I understand, was late.
Correct. I believe I sent it in the next day. I believe I had, submitted the incorrect study. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just take a very short time, the panel in camera, then to determine if we will accept your late written evidence. Okay, Mr. Mohan, if you could just put us in camera, please. Okay, thank you very much. The panel has determined that we will accept the late evidence given the circumstances regarding its submission. So with that, we will start with item 1 on our agenda. And we will go with you, Mr. Rehan, file number 24-2294260 Toronto Street. If you could begin, please. You are muted. Can I just stop you for a minute? Is anybody having a hard time hearing?
I am.
Yes, I am.
Okay. We are having difficulties hearing you.
It's fine now?
Everybody?
Can you repeat that, please?
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Yeah,
You're kind of low, but
kinda
It's
low,
low, yeah.
So is that okay?
that's
Yes, better.
Okay, sorry for the trouble. So the first file number is 242294. 260 Toronto Street, roll number 13040181000. The assessed value for 2025 for that property is $2,025,000. It is classified as 20 and the liability is taxable. It has 3 stories, built in 2022, 8 number of suites with 4 outdoor parking spots. So moving on to page 2, this is just some information regarding the request for information. Now this property was built in 2022, so there is no recent information on file. This is just for the older demolished property that we have. So there is no subject sale history at this time. Page 3, we're looking at income value summary. Now that shows that there are 12 one-bedroom units, 6 two-bedroom units. So total number of units are 18, and average monthly rent per unit is $865.38. So the gross potential rent is calculated as $186,922 with vacancy rate of 3.6% and expense ratio of 45.5%. NOI is calculated 98,205. The cap rate, the model derived cap rate is 4.85%. So the market value is calculated to be $2,025,000, not enough. The market value per suite is $112,500. So just to give you a heads up, I reviewed the applicant's evidence too. There seems to be no issue with the income NOI of the property. So the main issue will be the cap rate for this property. So page 4, it has some rent comparables. Now, if we're moving on to page 5, I've calculated. Now, this property is a social housing. It's being operated as a social housing. As far as my knowledge, that I've done some research on it. It was built by Winnipeg Housing Rehabilitation Corporation. So we did some CMHC because we don't have any income or expense information for the property, so we kind of calculated CMHC average market rents and just compare it with the model rents. So page 5 and page 6 is the calculation for that comparison. As we can see that our model rent is only 77% on the CMHC potential rent. And then on page 7, this is the table that we used kind of to calculate the numbers. Now that was based on the zoning, era of construction, and the size of the building. Now page 8 has cap rate evidence. Now this is just a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose of showing these individual cap rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model, not to do, and this is not meant to be comparable and specific to the subject property. Page 9 is capitalization rate from the industry. Page 10, we have municipal assessment asserts. Page 11, there's a permit attached. This permit was taken out, as I explained, because this is for the new build. We constructed 3-story, 30-52 square foot apartment building. The construction value for this property was declared as $2.4 million. And then moving on to page 12, there are some aerial images of the property. As you can see, on your screen, this is brand new. We did not have any interior photos on the file, so I would just like to recommend the board to make the current assessment based on condition and the year of build of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, questions for the assessor?
Yes, Madam Chair, if you can just give me about a half a minute here, please. Okay, so with respect to the expense ratio you use is 45.5%, and the capitalization rate used is 4.85. Can you sort of explain that rate with respect to the rates that are published?
Published on which page? Are you talking about the industry rates or the state that we have those?
With respect to your page 9, I see that you have for a multi-family slot, the city has apparently calculated capitalization rates between the 20th and the 80th percentile. Which do you think is most applicable to this property?
Well, I was already kind of.
Sorry, I can barely hear you.
Yeah, so
you're gonna have to speak to get up closer to the mic because I'm having problems.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to hear you and sort of formulate my questions too.
We are, yeah, I don't know what it is, Mr. Rehan, but we are having some difficulties.
Is the voice fine now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that. So so this information is model derived. 4.85 cap is assigned to the property based on the condition and the year of build. Now, I would like to explain that at the city, we value the property on the highest and best use, not the current use of the property. So the 4.85% cap rate derived by the model is based on what is potentially being generated on the market.
Okay, so this is social housing, is it not?
Yes, it is.
So it's designed as social housing, it's new, and what is the market for this building then?
Well, it's a brand new build that I've attached to a permit. It was built with year construction value of $3.4 million.
Right.
The number of suites, if you look at the suite mix, it's one bedroom has 12 units. There's two bedroom of six two-bedroom units on the property. So it's a decent suite mix. If potentially like 112,500 per unit, that's reasonable on the market.
Right. Yeah. No. And I'm just questioning you with respect to the capitalization rate. And you're saying, I'm just, I'm a little confused with respect to how the city is assessing this property. Then, are they assessing it based on its current use?
No, it's assessing it based on.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry.
It's assessing it based on highest and best use for the property.
And what would you say is the highest and best use of this property?
Where there's no restrictions to the rent or any caps on the rent. Because currently it's in social housing, it's not based on the average rental market.
Right. So it's currently being used as social housing with a depreciated rent. Is that correct?
Yes,
and it was built solely for that purpose, correct?
Can you say that again?
And it was built solely for that purpose. Is that correct?
It was built solely for that purpose, but the point is, in the assessment, the way it works is you have to value the property on highest and best use. That's how the property is being valued in the city.
Correct, the highest and best use. And the highest and best use isn't the highest and best use is current use?
No.
It's not.
Oh, it's not. I mean,
Okay,
if there's a cap on the rents, then how it cannot be a highest and best use because it still has the potential if you put it on market, if you bring out, and if you open this market to everyone, would the rent be same as it's right now? I don't think so.
right. Not to diminish, not to diminish the property with respect to my comments here, but the clients that are occupying this building and are paying the rent, would it be the same as the clients that you're referring to with respect to other properties?
Yeah, again, that's what I'm trying to say is this property is not being used in the highest and best way. It's being used as a social housing. So there is a market limit to what kind of tenants can come and apply for the housing, right? The income, the rents are basically based on the incomes of those tenants. It's not open to everyone it's not open probably for the whole of Winnipeg. They can just go and live there.
Fair enough.
There's a certain issue with that social housing part. So, but yet again, the cap rate is always derived on the highest and best use.
So the cap rate you're saying is always derived on the highest and best use, and you're saying the current use is not its highest and best use. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Arnell, questions for the assessor?
No questions, thanks.
Ms. Werhan?
Just on his rent comparables without going through each one individually, are those all low income housing or social housing also?
No, those are not, and none of them are social housing or any kind of nonprofits. They are for-profit apartments. So that's why I did not go in detail into them a lot because there wouldn't be an exact comparison in terms of rent in the current market.
Okay, so you weren't able to get other comparables that were social housing units?
Yeah, because we in the city, when we ask for income and expense mailers from or questionnaires from those, we usually don't get consistent answers because they're not run on they're not kind of run on that rent market rent basis.
Okay, those are all for now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, I have a question about the quality of construction. So is the quality of construction of social housing typically at the same level of quality as a privately built? I'm trying to get at quality. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would speak to specifically for this property because I mean, we do a lot of social housing in the city here too, and then fields for those ones too. But this is just like built 2 years ago, brand new, right? And then this only has 18 units. So it's not like Manitoba housing buildings that has a lot of units. This one has only 18 units, and as you can see the aerial images of it, it is built in a very unique structure. It's a very good structure from the outside of it. It doesn't look anything. It doesn't look dated. It has, forced air inside system, heating system. Now, that is, I would say, it's very different from the older social housing. It's very different in the city.
So you would say that the age in this case sort of trumps things because it's fairly new and the condition would still be good compared to older social housing units. Is that what you're saying?
The condition would be very different. This is like, I would say if anybody comes and buys this property at this time or any potential buyer, they're not looking at major repairs or maintenance for the property at this time.
at this time. Okay. Have you been inside?
No, we haven't done an inspection.
So, despite the an occupancy permit, there's been no assessor.
I didn't see any notes that anybody was, they must have did any inspection, but I don't see any evidence. on our-
Okay. I see that you didn't submit anything, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. I was wondering if you
I
personally
don't
had been.
I don't have any kind of proof from the assessment department that they did an inspection.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Mr. McCubbin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd like to submit my brief evidence, 260 Toronto Street. The roll number is 13-0401-81,000. And file number is 24-2294. On my summary page, page 2, you can see the property owner is Winnipeg Housing Rehabilitation Corporation. The property was constructed in 2022. It is 4 stories, and it has a good suite mix of 12 one-bedroom and 6 two-bedroom suites for a total of 18 suites. With respect to the realty assessment, the current assessment is $2,025,000. We're asking that it be reduced to $1,786,000. With respect to this property, we are in agreement with the NOI the city has placed on the value for the valuation of this property. However, we are in disagreement with the capitalization rate. This is social housing, and it makes sense, I guess, why the capitalization rate is it's low, placed by the city. Now I understand the context, and the context that the city is looking at this property in is that it's not its highest and best use, so they're valuing it for some other use by some other owner in the open market, I suspect, and they're placing and they have a capitalization rate of sub 5 on it. We feel an appropriate capitalization rate for this property would be 5.5%. And when applying that to the market, to the NOI of $98,205, we arrive at a market value of $1,786,000. Now, just a little bit about discussion regarding capitalization rates. You can see the discussion placed in my brief with respect to that. The city has used a capitalization rate of 4.85%. We'll be using 5.5%. Typical capitalization rates for good quality properties in good locations would be as follows, and you can see in the table with respect to effective year bills and good location with respect to capitalizations as far as Altus is concerned. And you can see any building that was built plus subsequent to 2005, we have a range of 5 to 5.75%. Now, with respect to that, we feel that it's almost new, or it is a new building. The suite mix is good. With respect to the property itself, just to give you an idea of what goes on in the social housing, when comparing it to other revenue-driven properties, which is a huge distinction, it is relative to their condition and the way they're kept. In this case, I don't believe that's a problem. As it sits right now, it's brand new. And the suite mix is good on this property. But I can tell you that the type of property it is in, comparing it to investment type properties just won't work, because the property was built specifically for this purpose. for social housing, and generally social housing, the amenities in social housing are not the same as that in your typical apartment building. For example, common areas, rooms that tenants can use, et cetera, et cetera. And they're very basic in a sense. And that's one way you can atone the rent and the capitalization rate also. But I just want to make that distinction with respect to this type of property and a property that can generate market income. This property cannot generate market income as the assessment department is portraying it on the open market. In my addendum, you will see the city's workup, and that is my presentation. I'm open for questions, Madam Chair.
Before we open up for questions, Mr. McCubbin, did you want to review quickly your cap rate study, or will that
Yes, I can quickly touch on that, Madam Chair, with respect to overall Altus capitalization rate.
Yeah, and I am thinking, Mr. McCubbin, if you go through it, and we have heard it before, we're a little bit familiar, but still it's important to go through, especially for the record, and then you wouldn't have to do it for the other items on the docket.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. So if you can go to the submitted apartment capitalization rate study, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, and specifically, and I'm not going to go through the whole document or read verbatim from it. The board can ask me questions if they so desire once they've reviewed it. But with respect to market reports, that can be found on page 6 of that document, Madam Chair. And you'll see the type of apartments, low rise A and low rise B. It's categorized by the various market reporters, Collier, CBRE, Cushman. And you can see the difference in capitalization rate from Q1 of 21 to 23. And again, these are reported. So they've essentially been unchanged for the most part. It should be noted that the ranges in capitalization rates reported in the above may be skewed by the inclusion of more investment style properties and may include other costs such as land transfer taxes and closing costs with respect to that. So we don't know what went into the calculation of those capitalization rates, but they are published rates. With respect to the increase in the cost of borrowing, it's no secret that the cost of borrowing has increased from the last cycle to this cycle, and it would have a direct result on borrowing capital. What else can I show you in this document? Obviously, there are a number of factors that affect capitalization rate, building type and construction, the heritage status designation, building amenities, which is important, in-suite laundry, balconies, outdoor spaces, office space or den, business spaces, gyms, pet-friendly spaces. Now, that sort of amenity you would not generally find in the subject property. Also, the durability of income is considered, age, the condition. The age is new for the property, and I suspect it's in good condition. The suite mix is important. The subject has a very good suite mix. Now, with respect to capitalization rates for properties as such, which sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Just bear with me, please. So with respect to capitalization rates, the ones that we have calculated for low rise, you will see on page 12 of my presentation. And the capitalization range anywhere from 5.26 to 7.11%. And you can see their respective ages. Obviously, they'll be older than the subject property. The newest building being the 2017 building at 100 Maryland. And sorry. Now, with respect to the capitalization rates that we calculated, as I've said, that's on page 12 of the brief. So you can see 100 Maryland Street, the asking price was $2,350. It sold for $250,000. The capitalization rate is 5.44%, built in 2017. To go to our income summary, it's on the page there, Madam Chair. We are using a capitalization rate of 6.48%. Our calculated NOI is $142,228, and we're arriving at a value of $2 million. Just bear with me, please. Sorry. Just bear with me, please, Madam Chair. I'm getting confused between the two presentations here.
Yeah,
As you can probably notice.
no problem. Take your time.
Yes, thank you. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Those are the capitalization rates that we calculated. The newest property being the one on Maryland at 5.44%. Moving back to my report, the capitalization we apply to this property is 5.5%.
And Mr. McCubbin, does that conclude your presentation now?
And yes, that concludes my presentation, and we respectfully request the board to reduce the 2025 realty assessment from $2,025,000 to $1,786,000. In the appendix, it just shows the city's workup with respect to the income summary for the property. I thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Assessor, questions for the applicant?
Just a few questions, Madam Chair.
Do you have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, just a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Mr. Howard, is this property being run in the highest and best possible use?
Yes, it is. The highest and best use of the property is its current use, yes.
Okay. And do you think that this, the income generated is the best form of revenue from the property?
As it stands today, yes, it is.
And then just a question on your cap rate study. If I could turn the attention of everyone to page 19 of cap rate study, please.
Okay, just bear with me for a second,
Yeah,
please.
just give us a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Harvard was comparing, like, I wouldn't say comparing, but he was singling out 100 Maryland Street because it's new, and how they derive the cap rate for this property, which is at 5.44%. So my question to Mr. Howard is, there is no income and expense information for the property. So how did they actually calculate the cap rate?
Okay, we will have to go to the we get to that property. There should be notes with respect to that. Bear with me, please. Just have to change the view on my page here. Phillips. Okay, so we look at with respect to the specific property, we have, it looks like we've used a stabilized amount of 185,925 of EGI, and we also included $50 per stall estimate for the parking. I do not see any other notes with respect to this specific property in the calculation. The remarks, however, does say that we're using an October 2021 CMHC 2005 plus schedule for estimating the rent for this property. So it was estimated, it looks like. We don't have the net operating, we don't have the details with respect to this property, you're correct.
Yeah, so there is no actual data, right?
Sorry?
There is no actual data for the property, right?
No.
Yeah, that will be all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Werhan, questions for the applicant?
I do not, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Mr. McCubbin, have you been in this property?
No, I have not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so when you talk about built specifically for this purpose, what actually are you talking about?
Well, it's built specifically for, and you know, I'm going to say for the clientele that will occupy this property. The amenities are as such that they're quite a bit less and almost non-existent with respect to other properties on the market that are in the open market.
Can you speak to the amenities that are in the apartment?
Well, as far as I know, there are no amenities in terms of office. You know, if you have a general room for the use of the tenants, we do not have in suite washer and dryers.
I'm sorry, they do or they do not?
They don't. They
Okay.
don't.
No
It's
gym?
Generally smaller, a smaller percentage of common area in this building compared to a new built apartment building that would be put on the market for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I note that you, Altus, you, whoever,
Yeah.
gave a 0.5% premium, a 0.5 point premium on this property. Obviously, because it is social housing, that would be correct?
That is correct. It's the type of investment that we have here, and how would it be considered? You know, it's something. You know, the problem with valuing these property, Madam Chair, is that they generally won't enter the market, the open market. But we still have to make we still have to make we still have to arrive at a capitalization rate that's appropriate in taking all things considered with respect to this type of an apartment complex versus your regular apartment complex that's in the open market. We've made an adjustment in the capitalization rate.
So I see on your page 11 of your main evidence,
Yes.
the comment by age is new.
Yes.
Nothing for building type and construction.
No.
Number of suites, you've indicated it's a good suite mix.
That's
I'm
correct.
assuming the demand is pretty good.
Yes.
And it is new.
It is a new building, yes.
Would not the fact that it's new maybe mitigate some of, at least at this point in time, some of the issues with the social housing properties that you're speaking of generally?
This is a social housing property, and for it to mitigate that, I think you would have to change the clientele that occupy the suites. These are heavily used buildings. I mean, this one is brand new, but what we've come across is that these properties are generally heavy used.
And specifically for this property, who is the clientele? Seniors?
Well, it's social housing. I'm not sure the demographics. Is that what you're getting at, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the demographics that occupy. I indeed know it's social housing.
Okay.
Could be a mix of demographic. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just wondering if it was maybe seniors or which some would argue would be easier on properties, and then some would argue they're not because they bump into stuff with their devices.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Do you have rebuttal evidence, Mr. McCubbin?
No, I don't, Madam Chair.
Mr. Rehan?
No rebuttal evidence, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And just out of curiosity, do either of you have rebuttal evidence for any of the items going forward?
I don't, Madam Chair.
Me neither.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rehan, would you like to make a summary statement?
Yes, so I would like to summarize my point that this property, well, Mr. Howard doesn't agree with it, but it's not being used in the highest and best use because, as you just said, it's not open for the whole market. It's only for social housing, but rather comparatively, it's a very new property. The build type is, as I said, the permit showed a clear value of $3.4 million for the property. There is only 18 suites. It's not a high-risk investment. There are no high repair and maintenance costs. So I believe the cap rate is 4.85 is fair, and the property is being valued at $2 million fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, summary?
Madam Chair, I think the main difference here in the way we value this property from the city standpoint and from offices is that obviously the city does not think that the property is being utilized, although it's brand new, at its highest and best use. So we have some concern about that because we feel that the highest and best use of the property is its current use for social housing. I don't see how the city can rationalize otherwise as highest and best use. Yes, primarily it's used as an apartment block, but it's a different type of a building. I mean, you can have industrial properties, yeah, they're used industrially, but they're totally different in the type of use that takes place and the tenancies and everything else. And that's what we're trying to get at here, Madam Chair. And we're atoning for that in the capitalization rate. we think a capitalization rate of 5.5% is low enough for a property like this. Going sub 5 is I'm not sure, especially when you look at the interest rates during that period. And so I asked the board to reduce the assessed value using the capitalization rate of 5.5%. And that's my summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Okay, that will conclude item number 1. Mr. Rahan, file number 2, or item number 2, file number 24-1504, 65 Hargrave Street. When you are ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just give me a second. So the next property file number is 241504. The roll number is 1209 2561000. The address is 65 Hargrave Street. The current assessment for 2025 is at $2,194,000. The classification is 20 and it is taxable. It has one building, number of stories are 3. It was built in 1955. It has 24 number of suites and 16 outdoor parking spots. Moving on to page 2, we have the income and expense information. It shows that the property ownership has been compliant with the income and expense. Page 3, we have the income value summary. Now that summary shows that there are 24 one-bedroom units. Average monthly rent per unit is being calculated at $847.87. So the gross potential rent is $244,187. Using the vacancy rate of 4.3% and expense ratio of 52.12%. The NOI is calculated to be 111,889. Using the cap rate of 5.1%, the estimated market value rounded off is calculated to be $2,194,000, and market value per suite is $91,416.67 per unit. Then moving on to page 4, we have the rent comparables for the property here. As we can see, the rent comparables are ranging. The average monthly rent per unit is ranging from $899 to $951, whereas the subject is at $847.87. And then moving on to page 5, we have the same cap rate evidence previously. Again, this is just a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual cap rate is to illustrate the accuracy of the model, and they are not meant to be used as specific comparables for the subject property. And page 6 is the industry capitalization rate table. Page 7, we have the municipal assessment and act reserves. Moving on to page 8, we have the income and expense questionnaires with financial statements. And then we have attached some interior photos on page 14 and 15, and some aerial images of the property on page 16. So that is all for the presentation, and I would like to recommend putting in the current assessment at $2,194,000. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. McCubbin, questions for the assessor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the capitalization rate applied of 5.1, and bearing in mind what we have, what you've placed on the previous property, and I know it's not being heard here, but it's sub 5. when was this property constructed? Sorry?
1955, that's one state.
So on a 1955 apartment block, you're saying that the capitalization rate should be 5.1%?
Well, this is a very different property to the one that we just discussed.
Yes, it is. But I'm just getting to the age of the property. This is substantially older, is it not?
It is, but cap rate is not only calculated based on the age. It has more outdoor parking spots, it has more units, and they're all one bedroom units.
No, I realize that, but just looking at the age of the property, just picking that out with respect to the capitalization rate, and I'm not going to belabor the point. The fact remains that capitalization rates are very closely related, and the two properties, one being brand new, one built in 1955. I'll leave it at that. Our net operating income, I believe, is about 10,000 apart. I'm gonna, I'll do my presentation to show how we got at that, or NOI. Those are all the questions I have right now, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Werhan, questions for the assessor?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Arnell.
Just one, have you viewed this property at all?
No, we haven't done any inspection in the property.
There hasn't not been one? So, okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I have some questions. I'm looking at your page 13. Actually, probably even before that. Starting on page 9. Okay, rental income, 2022, 243,056.
Yep.
That number I would find that on your page 3, I think it is, as potential income, which you have is 244.
Yes.
So in this case, your model is fairly close to that rental income. Yeah, okay. Let's see, what else did I have to ask you? These pictures that are in here, where did they come from?
It was from the website where it was included.
So there's 2 pictures on the website.
Yeah.
One is of a kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rental ad.
And one is of a bathroom curtain.
Yeah. Just, I mean, you can only barely see that in there.
Okay.
But, yeah, that's what I could find.
So only the 2 pictures then. Looks like it's been updated post 1955 a little bit at least.
I mean, the kitchen, yeah, but I can't see anything about the apartment house or the apartment.
Yeah, I see you have no effective age on it, so.
We're still kind of valuing it as a 1955 cost. We're not adding any effective age or anything.
Okay. Okay, and aside from that, everything is modeled, correct?
Everything is modeled.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Mr. McCubbin?
Madam Chair. Okay. 65 Hargrave Street, roll number 120925 61,000. The file number is 24-1341. The property owner is 4656360 Manitoba Limited. Original age of the building is 1955. It's 2.5 stories, 24 suites, 24 one-bedroom suites. The current assessed value is $2,194,000. We're asking for it to be reduced to $1,719,000. You can see the building on page 2, the facade of the building. The highest and best use is, of course, its current use. With respect to property description, that could be found on page 6 of my presentation. It's best described as a 2.5 story multifamily rental apartment. No, I'm not sure how many individuals can fit in a one bedroom, but nevertheless. The total gross floor area is 19,629. There are 2 washers and 2 dryers located in the building for the purposes of the tenants. It's Zone D, downtown living, and you can see the relative location of it in the downtown area on page 6. As I've said, the highest and best use is its current use. With respect to the approaches to value, only the income approach obviously was contemplated for this property. And so if you can go directly to that page, Madam Chair. That's on page, sorry, that would be on page 11 of my presentation. The effective gross income for the subject property is estimated to be $233,687. A market vacancy of 4.35% will be applied. The stabilized expenses for the subject property are estimated to be $109,139. The actual stabilized expense ratio for the property is therefore 52.5%. That's reasonable given the age of this property. And this includes a stabilized rate for repair and maintenance expense of $11.83 per suite, which is fairly reasonable too. So we arrived at the net operating income as of April the 1st, 2023 of $98,861. The capitalization rate that we applied is 5.75% for this particular property, Madam Chair. And if you please go to page 12 of my presentation, kind of a brief discussion with respect to why we are placing 5.75. You can see the factors involved here. It's the property is 69 years old. It's wood frame construction. There's a poor suite mix or no suite mix whatsoever. It's all one bedroom. Supply and demand. The Winnipeg multifamily inventory appears to have saturated with new supply as of the reference date, accelerating the obsolescence of Winnipeg's older multifamily stock. We are placing an overall capitalization because of those factors of 5.75% for this property. Turning now to page 13 of my presentation, Madam Chair. You can see the effective gross income of $208,000. To that, we apply total expenses, or we deduct the total expenses of $109,139, arriving at $98,861, and capitalizing that amount at 5.75%, we arrive at a value of $1,719,000 rounded. And in summary, we respectfully request the Board of Revision to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the property located at 15 Hargrave from $2,194,000 to $1,719,000. In regards to my appendix, you can see the city's workup on page 16, and following that, you can see the income and expense statement as it was submitted, and that's my presentation. I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rehan.
Yes, I have a few questions for the applicant. Now, I see that the main difference is obviously the net operating rate, the revenue part of the NOI. Well, I'd like to question Mr. Howard that how did you calculate 208,000 EGI when on the average you're stabilizing at 238?
Right. Just bear with me, please. We have placed an overall rent on this property of And this is I'm getting at the potential market income.
Yeah.
After vacancy. So we're applying an overall market rent of $722. And that's the effective gross income. That's based on the effective gross income of this property, and we feel that that's reasonable.
Nope, you are muted, Mr. Assessor.
Yes, sorry. So if I look at the page 19 of the applicant's evidence, if everybody can scroll down to page 19, please.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. Now here is the the income expense information reported to the city by the ownership, which
Right.
indicates and this is for 2022, which is the most recent one.
Right.
Now this shows that this is $897.75 on average monthly rent for 24 units. If I calculate this becomes $258,000.
Right.
So I still don't understand how the 208,000 is calculated. Like, I'm confused.
Right. No, well, we're using an overall rent of $722 per suite.
But this is
That's how that was calculated, and I see what you're saying on page 19, the reported information.
I mean, none of the financial statements also show. I mean, this 208, there's a big discrepancy. So
Yeah, and I realized that if you look at the rent roll, you'll see that there were discounts applied to some of the rents in some cases, and the discounts vary also. So, we're looking at what's achievable overall in this building, in this era, and comparing it to market.
but I mean, the first part.
Okay. I think he's answered to the best of his ability, Mr. Rehan.
Okay, yeah, I mean, okay, I have no other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, questions for the applicant?
My question's been asked, thanks.
Ms. Werhan?
Mine also, thank you, Madam Chair.
I had the same questions too, Mr. McCubbin, so
Fair enough.
thank you.
Thank
Mr. Rehan, a summary statement from you?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin?
I'm good, Madam Chair. No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes item number 2. Okay. We will move to item number 3 now, file number 24-1299, 15 Hargrave Street. Mr. Assessor, when you are ready, please.
Just in a moment here, I'm just going to pull up the file.
Yep. Time.
Sorry for the wait. All right, so the file number is 241299. The roll number is 1209-255-0000. The address is 15 Hargrave Street, 2025. Assessment is at 2,323,000. It is, classification is 2-0, and the liability is taxable. It has a number of buildings. In one, there are 3 stories. It was built in 1906. Actually, the aero build is 1911. It's not 1906. There is, so I would like to make a correction for that. The number of suites on the property is 21, and there's only 1 outdoor parking spot. So before I move on, I would like to make a recommendation.
Okay.
For the property. Now, so I would like to value the property at 1.9 million.
So let me just repeat, that's 1,900,000.
Yes.
Okay. Any other components to that, or just a reduction to 1,900,000?
Yeah, so we are in agreement with the cap rate that the applicant has offered.
Okay.
We're using the NOI from the city, which is 161.40. And if I'm correct, I guess there's only $2,000 or maybe $150 difference in the NOI of applicant and the city. So there's not a big issue.
So when I calculate the city's NOI and a 6.1 cap, I get 1,904,000 rounded, but you're going to 1,900,000?
Yeah, I'm rounding it off.
Pardon me?
I'm just rounding the number off.
So 1,900,000. Okay. Okay, Mr. McCubbin, do you accept the recommendation?
Yes, we'll accept that recommendation, Madam Chair.
Okay. And do my panel members have any questions, Ms. Werhan?
I do not, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Arnell?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Rehan and Mr. McCubbin, for that. That will conclude item number 3. So let's move on to item number 4. File number 24-1447. This is 296 Broadway. Mr. Rehan, when you're ready, please.
Second. So we're going to wait again. So the file number is 241447. Roll number is 1209-250-4000. Address is 296 Broadway. The 2025 assessment is at 2.365, 2,365,000. Classification is 20, and liability is taxable. Number of building is 1. There are 3 stories, built in 1949. 24 suites with no parking spots. So again, I would like to make a recommendation for this one too.
Okay.
Now, the same thing, the applicant if I'm correct, has proposed a cap rate of 5.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna agree to that cap rate. And using the net operating income of city of 119,431, we value the property at 2,171,472.
So 2,171,000 rounded.
Yeah,
Okay. Mr. McCubbin, before we go any further, do you accept the recommendation?
It's a bit off from what we were proposing, Madam Chair. If you can just give me a moment, please.
Sure. Yeah.
I just have to. So you're staying with your, if I have a question with respect to that, Madam Chair.
Of course. Yes.
So what is the net operating income that you will be using for that, please?
so on my page 3, the NOI is calculated there. So the number is 119,431. So 119,431.
Okay, and just let me get back to your brief there. Sorry, if I'd known this before, I would have been in a better position. So going back to your page, sorry, on your income summary on page 3. So you have a vacancy rate of 4.3%, a gross potential income of 249, and while we're doing this, Madam Chair, I'm just comparing it to our potential income also. I'm sorry I have to do this, or I can take is it okay if I take a 5-minute break, Madam Chair? Is it appropriate in the middle of
If you feel, do you feel you need a few minutes to go through this?
I think I need to specifically for this property.
Okay, then I would propose we recess then. Till what, 2:30?
Sure, that
Does 2:30 give everybody enough time for a quick recess?
That's lots.
Okay, let's recess until 2:30, Mr. Mohan.
Can I make a comment, Mr.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Now, I just like to advise the applicant that there is discrepancy in EGI calculated by him and the city. So there is, the issue is there. It's not an expense issue. So now
It's a rent issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that is because if he goes through my evidence, we believe that previously the rent has been underreported as per the advertisements on the website. They're usually advertising this for a higher amount than what they report on their income expenses. So just based on that, we kind of did the CMHC average apartment rents calculation. And that's why we stick with the NOI.
Okay, so that will give Mr. McCubbin an explanation for your valuation. And let's recess until 2:30, please. Okay, I'd like to call our meeting back to order. Just before our recess, our assessor had made a recommendation to reduce the assessment on item number 4, 296 Broadway. Mr. McCubbin, you've now had time to consider the recommendation as it stands at 2,171,000. And what is your response to that, please? You are muted.
Are you asking me or?
Madam Chair, we will accept the recommendation for 2,171,000.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCubbin. And do my panel members, Mr. Arnell, Ms. Werhan, have any questions or comments on that recommendation?
No questions, thanks.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Assessor and Mr. Applicant. We'll move to item number 5 on our agenda now, file number 24-3668. This is 16 Roslyn Road. So, Mr. Assessor, when you are ready, you may begin.
This property file number is 243668. Roll number 1203-2433-000. Address is 16 Roslyn Road. 2025 assessment is at $2,415,000. Classification 2-0, liability taxable. It has one building, 3 stories, built in 1958. Number of suites are 20, and there are 10 outdoor parking spots. Moving on to page 2, as you can see, that same incoming expense information, the company has been compliant, so there are no issues with that. Page 3 is our income value summary calculation. As stated, there are 2 bachelor units, 15 one-bedroom units, and 3 two-bedroom units. So total number of units are calculated as 20. The average monthly rent per unit is $999.25. So the gross potential rent comes up to $239,820. With the vacancy rate of 3.2% and the expense rate of 47.46%, the NOI is $121,970. Using the capitalization rate of 5.05%, the value is at $2,415,000, which is $120,750 per unit. And then moving on to page 4, we have some rent comparables here. So as you can see, the rent comparables that we're using are in the range of $878 to $957, and the subject is on the higher end, which is a $960. Page 5 has the capitalization rate evidence as similar to the ones we have already discussed. Page 6, we have the capitalization rates from the industry. Page 7, we have assessment excerpts. And then page 8, we have the rent roll information, and then financial statements following on to that. And then we have income expense information along with some more financial statements and a snapshot from the website on page 17 and 18. And then moving on to the last pages, we have aerial images on page 19 and 20 of the building, of this location. And based on the presentation, I would like to recommend the board to maintain the current assessment at $2,415,000 for the subject property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCubbin, questions of the assessor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the potential income of the property, effective gross income, sorry, getting to right down to the effective gross income of $232 $232,146. How does that compare to what's being reported, please?
So in the income statement, the rent, residential rent, for 2022, I believe was 206,000.
Right.
And then it was in 2021, it was 170,000. But yeah, I mean, looking at that, if you move on to page 8 of the presentation,
Sorry, page
page 8,
8.
yeah.
Just bear with me, please. Okay, sorry.
So this is the rental information of the property that was submitted.
Right.
And as you can see, the monthly rent of that property is 19,985, and then
Right.
the discounts are 519, right, per month. Now
Right.
these are so if I look at that and calculate it as, so I'm using 19,582. Well, this is 234.94 with the discounts.
Sorry, we're going back to your income now. Sorry, which page are we on now?
So currently I'm using page 8 to
Okay.
my income and expense explanation.
Right.
So this is the rent roll of the company, the lease charges and the discounts and the parking rates. Right. So as you can see, they kind of generate this huge revenue on a monthly basis with discounts. They bring up $19,582 per month.
Right.
So this calculated for annually, this becomes 234.94. So if you're running it off 235.
Right.
And then we have the parking charges of 106 per month.
Right.
Which becomes about $1,200. So, and then if you see our gross financial rent on page 3,
Right.
they're pretty consistent with the amount I just calculated with that. I mean, there's a discrepancy between the financial statements of what they're putting out and what is reported in the rent roll. So that is what.
Alrighty. And with respect to the capitalization rate, you're slightly above 5%. Again, what's the age of this property?
Yeah, it was built in 1958.
Right. And I mean, this is a model-driven capitalization rate, correct?
Correct.
And you think that for this age of the property and the subject property itself, do you think 5.05% is high enough for this property?
I mean, for this one now, because there are different aspects of this building, which is it has a low number of suites and they have 2-bedroom units and 1-bedroom majorly on them. And they have 10 outdoor parking spots. So that is one consideration. Apart from the age is 1958, yeah, that is old. That's not a question for them. But yeah, I mean, this is model driven, so I think it's fair.
So you're saying that the suite, it has a low suite count?
Yeah.
So when a suite goes vacant or a couple of suites go vacant, it does affect the income of a property like this, doesn't it? Also?
It does, but
more than say a property with quite a few more suites.
yeah, I mean, generally it would, but looking at the company's financial aspects and what they're generating at this time, I think everything has been pretty stable for the past 3-4 years.
Those are all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Ms. Werhan, questions for the assessor?
I do not, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Arnell.
None at this time, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Assessor, just going back to what you were saying, I think I heard you say, I couldn't hear it very well, but there is a discrepancy between the rent roll and what is being reported.
Yes, Madam Chair. I mean, on the financial statements for 2022 year, the rent is only 206,000. That is what they're reporting as residential revenue for rent.
Right.
Plus other income, the total income they have is 208,000. But the rent roll they submitted with that information, that calculates as 238,000 residential income plus the
Right. So why do you think there's such a discrepancy?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't have any explanation of why they're reporting it on the lower end.
Yeah.
Because for the past few years, I mean, there has been very low rents being reported on there.
So with respect to the rent roll, you've just provided 1 month, right?
No, this is as of the whole year till 2023, April 2023. So the leases have been signed since
No, but this is the rent per month.
per month, yes. 19,985.
Right. So it reflects 1 month worth of rent.
Yes. So I'm using that to calculate, just making it annually, multiplying by 12.
Yeah.
And then taking out the discount from there, which is 509 a month,
Right.
and then adding the parking costs that they are generating from it.
Yeah. So I see that your model is very close to that. I'm just wondering why the rent itself is so off in the financial statements compared to what this might show.
Yeah, I mean, that is why I put this in evidence now. I'm not sure exactly why because this is a big discrepancy. It's not like $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put this in evidence, and then, yeah.
No, that's fine. I see. I appreciate that you wanted to, so I'm good with that. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Assessor. Mr. McCubbin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so we go to, we're at 16 Roslyn Road. The roll number is 12-0324 33,000. File number is 24-3668. With respect to the summary page, on page 2, you can see the suite mix in the building. It's a 3-story building with 2 bachelors, 15 one-bedrooms, and 3 2-bedroom suites. The current assessed value is $2,415,000. We're asking for it to be reduced to $2,086,000. You can also see the building on page 2, the facade of the building. With respect to the property description itself, I don't know if I have anything else to add. Not really. That's located on page 6. I think the assessors have gone through it thoroughly too. And you can see the actual bird's eye view of the property on page 6, and its relative location on page 7 within that area of River and Osborne. Sorry, River Avenue and Roslyn Road. Sorry. Highest and best use. The highest and best use for this subject is as it exists in its current use today. In regards to the income approach to value, if I can get you to turn your attention to page 12, please. If the stabilized effective gross income for the property is estimated at $232,146, and that's as estimated by the city of Winnipeg. We estimate the gross effective gross income at $206,430, very close to what's been reported. With respect to vacancy, the city is placing a vacancy rate of 4.6%. But we do have to look at the bottom numbers. So the difference is when adding in the laundry income and the parking income and the miscellaneous income to the property, we're arriving at 211,419, and the city is at 232. With respect to expenses, we're at 96,750, and the city is at 110,176. Sorry. And so there's a discrepancy. Obviously, there will be in the net operating income. Our net operating income is 114,704. Now, with respect to the capitalization rate to be used on this property, we feel that a rate of 5.5% is appropriate. If you can go to page 13 of my presentation, please. You will see the factors that are affecting the capitalization rate for this property would be its age, of course, its type of construction, the low number of suites and the poor suite mix, and that all adds up to, we feel, an appropriate capitalization rate for this property being 5.5%. In summary, we respectfully request the Board of Revision to reduce the 2025 realty assessment for the property located at 16 Roslyn Road from $2,415,000 to $2,086,000. And in the appendix, you will see the city's workup with respect to the income approach, and you will see the reporting from the property with respect to the rents and the expenses and the submitted income and expense statements, the remaining of the brief. And that's my presentation. I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Rahan, questions for the applicant?
Yes, Madam Chair, just a few questions, please. Mr. Howard, would you agree that low number of suites?
Sorry, I can't. Can you just repeat that?
Sure. So I see on page 13 that there's a table here on the factors of how you are calculating the capitalization rate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So would you agree that a low number of suites would rather be a low risky investment?
Say that again, please.
Like the number of suites, they are low on the property, right?
Right.
Would you agree a property with low number of suites would be less risky?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The problem that you encounter with a low number of suites is if you encounter vacancy. Now, when you encounter vacancy in a 10-suite building, and one suite becomes vacant, you're at 10% immediately. So it has a direct effect on the operations of the property.
And then, did you speak with the owner?
Did I speak with the owner?
Did you get a chance to speak with the owner regarding the rent reported on the financial statements?
No, I did not. We went straight to the financial statements and we reviewed it, we accepted it, and that's what we have used in our income summary as submitted.
Yeah, these are all my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Arnell, questions for the applicant?
Yeah, on page 12, you're saying you're going to use a capitalization rate of 5. Yet on your sheets, you're using on page, let me get there here, 14, you're using 5.5.
Yeah, that's it. That's incorrect. The capitalization rate that I put in on page 12, that's incorrect. The intended capitalization rate is 5.5%, as in the analysis. Sorry.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Werhan?
None, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question about your table on page 13 as well, Mr. McCubbin.
Okay.
So the Altus, just briefly going back to your previous page, the Altus range for a 1958 property would appear to be 5.75 to 6.5, with 5.75 as your low cap. But you've reduced it further despite these, what I'm assuming you mean to be negative factors. So I'm just trying to understand that. You obviously don't see this as a risky, well, fitting within that age range, I guess. You see it as a 1970 to 1989, or do you feel that this property in particular merits a decrease below the base for your age range?
I feel that it warrants a decrease below the base. If you look at the base, it says 5.75 to 6.5. And we felt this specific property, we would go below the base.
And what about it makes it better then?
We feel that this property is in a good location. Although the comparison that you've seen that we're referring to on page 12, those are all good quality properties in good locations. And I mean, with respect to the subject property, I feel that it's in a very good location.
Okay.
And that's driving some of the temperance with respect to the cap rate.
Okay.
I'm not sorry, temperance, but some of the decision with respect to going below the base.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, and you did explain to the assessor how you determined your rental income. So
That is correct.
I was going to ask about that too, but you've explained that. So thank you for that. I have no additional questions. Mr. Rahan, do you have a summary statement you'd like to make?
Yeah, I would just like to say that based on the NOI calculation and the evidence that's submitted with the rental and everything, they all match up. And the applicant has already clarified that this is a good location.
Okay.
I would like to recommend the board to use.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on the evidence submitted, including income and expense statements for this property, and with respect to the adjustment of the cap rate upwards from the city's cap rate, we feel that a rate of $2,086,000 is well supported. And I ask that the board reduce the value from $2,415,000 to $2,086,000. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, that will conclude item number 5. Item number 6, this is file 24-1255, 478 Wardlaw Avenue. Mr. Rahan, when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this property is file number is 241255, roll number 1202-1676000. Address is 478 Wardlaw Avenue. 2025 assessment is $2,510,000. Classification 20, liability taxable. It has one building, 3 stories, built in 1929. Number of suites are 22, and outdoor parking spots are 15. So for this one, we are making a lower recommendation of $2,136,000 rounded off. As mentioned on my first page, see page 5 for details of, because we recalculated the stabilized income and expenses and So moving on to page 5, I will just leave everyone there.
Yeah,
So-
go ahead.
This is how we calculated the NOI of 108. We used the 2022 rent, potential income, parking. So the revenue was EGI was 220,000 stabilized, and then the expenses from the financial statements that were submitted. So we're using the expense ratio of 50.64, whereas the model was 47.41. And then we're still using the model cap rate of 5.10%. So we calculate this as 2,135,000. So I rounded up to 2,136,000 for the assessment. This is my recommendation for the applicant.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin, the assessor is recommending that the assessment be reduced to 2,136,000. I note that's lower than what you were requesting.
Yes, Madam Chair, and we do accept that recommendation. There is always, I mean, this is not an exact science, and it's an opinion of value, no doubt. So we'll accept that recommendation, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Thank you very much. Do my fellow panel members have any questions, Ms. Werhan, Mr. Arnell?
I do not.
I do not, thanks.
Thank you. All right, that will conclude item number 6. Item number 7, file number 24-1849. This is 469 Kennedy Street. Mr. Bahan, when you are ready.
Just give me a second to pull up the file. Thank you. For the wait. File number 241849, roll number 13053062000, address 469 Kennedy Street. 2025 assessment is 2,615,000. Classification 20 and liability taxable. Number of buildings on the property is 2. There are 3 stories. The effective area of build is from 1945 to 1985. So just to clarify that, I would like to let the board know that this property was gutted and rebuilt back in 1985. And then there are 27 number of suites and 8 outdoor parking spots. Now, I do have a recommendation for this one too. And that will be based on that we agree with the NOI of the applicant for this property, which is at 94,921.
Okay,
We're using the same cap rate as derived from the city, 5.2%. And we calculate this to be 1,825,000 rounded off.
1,825,000.
Yes.
Okay, let me just. Okay, Mr. McCubbin, we have a recommendation to reduce the assessment to $1,825,000. Do you accept the recommendation?
Madam Chair, we will accept the recommendation, yes.
Okay, so I'll just repeat, Mr. Rahan, just to make sure I have the number right, 1,825,000. That's based on the applicant's NOI of 94,921 and your cap rate of 5.2.
Correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Mr. Arnell or Ms. Werhan, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Then that will conclude item number 7. Okay, skipping right along. Okay, we are now at the last item on our agenda, file number 24-1341. This is 52 Edmonton Street. So, Mr. Assessor, when you are ready, please. You are, yeah, thank you.
File number 241341, roll number 1209-267-0000, 52 Edmonton Street, 2025 assessment is at $2,650,000. Classification 20, and it is liability is taxable. There's only one building on the property with 3 stories, built in 1927. No effective age. Number of suites are 30, and there's only 1 outdoor parking spot for the property. For this one, I would also like to make a lower recommendation. Now that will be based on the same net NOI on page number 3. The city calculated 137,806. And we are agreeing to the cap rate by the applicant, which is, if I'm correct, at 6%.
Okay, and your value?
And the value is calculated as, it was $2,297,000.
Okay. Mr. McCubbin, we have a recommendation to reduce the assessment to $2,297,000, and that's based on the assessor's NOI of $137,806 and the applicant's cap rate of 6%. Do you accept the recommendation?
I do accept the recommendation as it stands, Madam Chair, but just for the record, we don't necessarily agree on how they got to that, but the important fact here is that we're very close in value now, and I accept that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. McCubbin, and thank you, Mr. Rahan. Do my panel members have any comments or questions about the recommendation?
I'm good, thanks.
I have none, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Rahan and Mr. McCubbin, for your working together today. Made today quite enjoyable, so thank you. And with that, we have heard all of the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome.
Bye. Have a good rest of your day. It looks awful out there.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.